Now, this problem that we're about to work now, this capital budgeting problem now, shows us the difference between choosing based on net present value and on internal rate of return. And asks us to look at this and consider this and kind of get some sort of almost philosophical approach on whether you like net present value or internal rate of return, which is something you should think about. Now, this problem reads, Valley Corporation is attempting to select the best of a group of independent projects competing for the firm's fixed capital budget of $4.5 million. Now, a capital budget is simply how much a company is willing to spend. That's all the money they have to spend on projects. The firm recognizes that any unused portion of this budget will earn less than its 15% cost of capital, thereby resulting in a present value of inflows that is less than the initial investment. The firm has summarized in the following table the key data to be used in selecting the best group of projects. And they give us projects A through G. They give us the initial investment. They show us the internal rate of return. And then they give us the present value of the inflows at 15%. Now, just so you know, when we go to calculate net present value now, we're going to have to take the present value of the inflows and subtract the initial investment. So they didn't give us net present value. We're going to have to calculate that. The A part says use internal rate of return to select the best group of projects. B, use net present value to select the best group of projects. Now, what you see on the board here now, this is the solutions to this thing. So if we use internal rate of return, we'd want to choose the projects that had the greatest rates of return. And we want to keep all of that, the cost of all of that now, to a maximum of $4,500,000. So if we choose projects F, E, and G, we will have chosen the projects with the greatest rates of return. We will stay within our capital budget, and the cumulative net present value of those three projects is $700,000. And the B part now, they asked us to select based on net present value. And again, you have to calculate net present value in this problem. But in this case, if you choose based on net present value, you choose the projects that have the greatest net present value. So in other words, you want to choose projects within your budget that has the greatest cumulative net present value. That will add the most to the value of the firm. And in this case, you would choose projects B, F, and G. Those projects would cost $4.5 million, and the cumulative net present value is $900,000. So in the problem now, they ask us why we would choose these, and not only that, but which would you prefer, the internal rate of return projects or the net present value projects? There's really two kinds of arguments to be made here. One, you would want to choose the projects that have the greatest cumulative net present value. That's going to add the most to the value of the firm and the wealth of the shareholder, and add the most to the value of the stock in the market. The other logic of choosing net present value is that, remember, the cash inflows that you have to reinvest every year. With net present value, you assume you reinvest those cash flows somewhere to earn the cost of capital. With internal rate of return, these projects here, they have higher rates of return. You're buying the high return projects that not only assumes that you reinvest all the cash inflows, but indeed that you reinvest those cash flows somewhere to earn the rate of return. With internal rate of return, if you use internal rate of return now, what you're introducing to the company now is what's called reinvestment rate risk. That is, the rate of return projects that higher return you say you're looking for, you have to earn that higher rate of return every year. The odds of you doing that, the higher the rate of return on the project, the lower the odds of you actually being able to reinvest at that higher rate of return. So rate of return technique has more reinvestment rate risk than net present value. So choosing net present value, basically two arguments. One, these projects add more to the value of the firm. And two, choosing on the basis of net present value reduces the reinvestment rate risk of the company.